how I turned all of these philosophy books into a video game. Today, somewhere in the world, coders are programming AI to make choices in life or death situations. What would you teach them? Come watch now to see why Yogscar signed us over loads of other games and ultimately disagree with their decision. Hi, I'm Sam Reed, and this is my part of the official selection for the London Games Festival. Here you're about to find out about my new philosophical and ethical adventure, Trolley Problem Inc. So let's get on with it. So before we get started, my house is about to be blown down by storminess, so please wish me luck while talking about Trolley Problem Inc. So the Trolley Problem was named by Judith Jarvis Thompson. It's a famous ethical dilemma where there is a trolley barreling down a track towards 5 people and they can't get off the track in time, so it will hit them. Now, you are standing next to a lever. If you pull this lever, the trolley will move onto another line, saving the 5 people, but then it will actively hit one person. So you need to make the choice, do you let 5 people die, or do you actively kill someone?
Michael, what did you do? I made the trolley problem real so we could see how the ethics would actually play out.
A lot of people have heard of the trolley problem and seen it in pop culture, whether it's in TV shows or memes or board games, but you've never necessarily been able to interact with it and get feedback. It's usually something that people think about and maybe talk about, but our game puts you in the seat of you actually have to make this decision, and there is a clock and there are outcomes. So throughout the game, we introduce people to characters like Tyrone, you can see there. We have this dog. We have a whole host of characters, but also many different settings, as you can see here. Some, such as vaccines, which are very contemporary. Some which would be problems as old as time. What is the value of life? Do you do A, do you do B? Always question decisions. But to be clear, it's comedy. Like this looks quite serious. It is a fun time, but you also have to think. When it comes to Trolley Problem Inc., something that we do, which I feel is very original, is ask questions of the player. Usually when playing video games, people are reacting to things which are going on around them and making decisions, and that kind of decision making is really interesting for games and isn't necessarily done in other mediums. But for the trolley problem, I wanted to ask more direct questions. So players weren't necessarily interacting with objects and things in a world, but were, I guess, introverting a bit more and thinking in their head, what would I do in this circumstance? So there are multiple different ways of playing Trolley Problem Inc. We're going to look at playing it solo, as that's really the default. At the start of the game, to make you understand that you're making these choices, we have people effectively sign understanding the contents of the game. But really, this doesn't mean anything. It's just a fun, silly way of having you write your name, so then you can compare your results with other people's. The first problem we're going to see here is the trolley problem. So this really is the default, what people come expecting to see. The trolley problem, as we've said a few times, is 5 people versus 1. I think this is a good baseline for the game. It lets people understand, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be making tough decisions based on this pop cultural question. The difference is that you have a clock going against you and you actively have to make this decision. So good luck. So at the end of each mission, there's a report which comes up. Here we get some story. So the antagonist delivers a bit of judgment upon you and sets up the next mission in some cases. So that was the first problem in Trolley Problem Inc. Let's go on to have a look at some of the others now. And this is the very large man problem. Here you can see Tyrone. As we just found out, he has a severe phobia of trains. And in this interpretation of the trolley problem, there is no lever. Here we have 5 people standing on a track who will be hit unless you make the choice to push Tyrone in front of this train. You can see here we've selected to push him. When it comes to the antagonist in the game, their comments are based on what you currently have chosen. So they will always be fighting against you, really, to be being the voice of reason, questioning what you've currently said. At the end of each mission, you have your receipt come up, showing you how other people in the world have done, maybe other people on your save game have done, and giving you a receipt of how much death has been tallied up from yourself. People react very differently because there is now a face to the problem. It's not any longer 5 circles versus 1 circle. We've given you a person who has some kind of backstory and some kind of imagery, and even they're completely fictitious, people relate with that a lot more, making the problem harder. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The reason actually we put that line there is in case you're going against what you said earlier. So with this, there's a little girl in the yard. It's based on a problem called the man in the yard problem. And this is really trying to think, if someone wasn't to suffer, is it easier to make that choice? So with this, the one person doesn't see the train coming. The train will just hit them, and similar to going away in your sleep, you're just gone. So a lot of people feel like that may make this question easier. So we build on that by giving it a face and a name. And here you have to choose between 5 or the one young girl called Polly, who is currently building her dream hospital because she wants to become a doctor. Here you can see that we've made the choice to pull the lever, killing the child. What would you have done in that situation? So AI in Trolley Problem Inc. and in the real world is really important, and it's obviously going to be developing very fast over the next few decades. Something that is interesting with the AI is that it needs to make decisions, but as it doesn't have any morals or ethics, then we as people need to teach it how to handle people, what value as a person, and make these choices. So when it comes to the trolley problem, AI may one day need to actually make that choice. It may need to understand whether to pull the lever or not. Now, thinking about that on a train track sometimes makes it sound unrealistic. But when it comes to driverless cars, which are obviously on the horizon, that is a choice that AI will have to make, and people in Silicon Valley are having to code at the minute. If a car is going to hit 5 people in the street, should it mount a curb and hit 1 person? It really is just the trolley problem, but in a different light. So here we have the transplant problem, and this is another take on the trolley problem. We're effectively asking you, the player, the same question, but in a different context. So here you have 5 patients who each need a different organ or are going to pass away. There is a traveller who no one is going to notice if they go missing. You as a doctor have the option to either harvest the organs of the traveller, saving 5 people but ultimately killing someone, or doing nothing and letting 5 people die. Again, on paper, this is the same question, but I think you can understand it's a very, very different situation. And I imagine just watching this, you probably feel quite differently about the answer that you're going to give. So here we can see there is a collection system in the game. These are always played to make you feel good or bad. And you can see here one of the organs that we harvested from the traveller. So finally here we're about to see the A&E problem. This is just going to show a bit of where the game goes. We obviously don't want to give too much away, but the rest of the game is not focused around trolleys. So some of these problems are much more real-worldly than others, and this is one of those. This is a problem which I'm sure doctors have had to make constantly throughout years of service. And this is an A&E problem. So in this problem, we have someone who is waiting for a heart transplant. It's an elderly man, and they've been on a list for X amount of years, and it is urgently needed. There is one heart in the hospital, which is geared for them. But in A&E that night, there is a car accident, and a young man needs this heart to survive. So who should get the heart? Philosophically, is there something to do with this elderly man owning the heart? It was labelled for them. Would the young man make better use of the heart? And it's something that you have to tackle while also being bombarded with passive-aggressive commentary from the antagonist who's currently talking to you. Here we can see that you made the choice of the elderly man. Oh no, wait, you chose the young guy. And that just shows how we really try to poke you into feeling bad, but also knowing that at the end of the day, this is a video game. It's not real life. You're allowed to sort of feel a little bad because we know it's not real. When players play through the game, I hope that they think a lot about ethics and morals and just take a sliver of that into their everyday life. I feel that there are some parts of the game which may stand out more and be more relative in a contemporary world. So what we've just seen here is really the first 5 minutes of Trolley Problem Inc. There is so much more depth to the game, so many more questions, really digging into what is good or evil. Is there such a thing? Looking into, could AI be good and evil? Looking into what we've seen here, hospitals, but varying all the way up to wars. And then with all of this, if you want to do further reading, we have our reading list there, so you can second guess us, and you could potentially educate yourself in these areas if you want to go down that rabbit hole. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for spending time watching, and thank you to the London Games Festival for having me. I can't wait to judge the world this April. Please go wishlist Trolley Problem Inc. on Steam now.